Let's look at how to write while loops in Sway. In the version of Sway that I'm working with, 0.37, there's no for loops yet. So in this video, I'll give you examples of while loops and I'll show you how to use continue and break. So let's start with a basic while loop. Let's say that we have a mutable variable that mut total equals 0, and we'll use a while loop to add some number to this total. So we'll say while, and here we'll have some kind of condition. We'll need some kind of counter to exit the loop. So let's create a counter that's called let mut I equals 0. So while I is less than, let's say 5, and then what we're going to do is increment the count, I plus equals 1, and we also increment the total plus equals I, and then we'll return the total. What this while loop is going to do is add the current counter to total while the current count I is less than 5. So what we're going to see here is 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. This will be what the total will be after the while loop finishes. So this is a basic example of a while loop. Next, let's take a look at continue. So what I'm going to do is first copy this code, and then I'll show you an example of how to use continue. So again, we have the same example, and then inside here, I'm going to show you how to use continue. Continue means to skip to the next iteration. So for example, let's say that we want to skip this iteration if the current count I is an even number. We'll say skip if even. And to do this, we'll say if I mod 2 is equal to 0, then continue. So what's going to happen is, for the first iteration, I will be equal to 1. I is an odd number, so we're going to add 1 to total. In the next iteration, I will be equal to 2. I is an even number, so it's going to skip this iteration. Total will still be the same. On the next iteration, I will be equal to 3. I is an odd number, so we're going to add 3 to total. Skip I equals 4 is an even number. And for the last iteration, I will be equal to 5. It's an even number, so we'll add it to total. So after this while loop finishes execution, we'll have that total is equal to 1 plus 3 plus 5. And for the last example, let's take a look at break. I'll copy this code again, and then paste the code here. Now what break is going to do is it's going to exit the loop. So for this example, let's say that we want to exit this loop if I is greater than 3. So let's say if I is greater than 3, then break. So what will be the total when we run this while loop? Well, for the first iteration, we'll add a 1. For the second iteration, we'll add a 2. And for the third iteration, we'll add a 3. And for the fourth iteration, I will be greater than 3, so the loop will exit here. And the total will be 1 plus 2 plus 3. So those were examples of a while loop, continue, and break. Use continue to skip to the next iteration, and use break to exit the while loop. Let's compile the contract. Inside my terminal, I'll type fork build. Okay, and our contract compiled.